The Pentagon used biometric data in Afghanistan to help with counterterrorism efforts. Retinal scans, fingerprints, things like that. Now there are reports that the Taliban may have seized that biometric data. Margaret Hu is professor of law and international affairs at Penn State. She studies cyber surveillance. Margaret, welcome.
Thank you.
How big a deal is it that the Taliban may have these devices and information?
I think that this is tremendously troubling, and I think that we need to take this seriously and consider the risks and the data protection moving forward of the biometric data that we collect abroad.
So how easy is it then to access and use this biometric data? I mean, does the Taliban really have the technical knowledge to get to it?
There's reports that they would not be able to break into certain devices that were left behind by the U.S. military in the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and would need the assistance of other intelligence experts in order to access the data.
And what kind of intelligence experts would do that?
Well, I believe that it would require intelligence experts in other countries, such as Pakistan, to collaborate with the Taliban in order to try to access the most sensitive data that was collected by some of these biometric devices.
So give me an idea of what exactly this means. You know, it's called biometric cyber surveillance. What is that? You know, DoD calls it identity dominance and says that it's a cornerstone of counterterrorism efforts. Set the stage for us.
Well, after 9/11, the Department of Defense saw biometric data collection and analysis as one of the key aspects of their counterinsurgency and counterterrorism strategy, that by collecting biometric data, they would be able to make the terrorists and the criminals that were in Afghanistan more seen and then more easily targeted for actionable intelligence. And so biometric cyber surveillance is really the integration of biometric data such as scanned fingerprints, iris scans, facial recognition technology, even in some instances the collection of DNA, and integrating that with other databases, terrorist watch lists, other contextual information in order to conduct military operations and intelligence operations.
Well, it seems like a really good idea. I mean, it's a great way to identify people on the battlefield. You don't have to worry about all the aliases that people might be using. So what's the problem, Margaret?
Well, that is exactly the approach of the Department of Defense in the decades following 9/11, that this was going to be logical, practical, feasible, and one of our best efforts to conduct our counterterrorism operations. I think that part of the concern is that these technologies, however, do carry risks, that you can have over collection, you can have situations where the data is not properly being safeguarded against future risks. So, and I think that that's what we're seeing right now, that if you don't build in protections at the front end, you might face tremendous consequences on the back end.
All right, well, let's talk about those. Let's talk about the consequences. Let's talk about the implications for data privacy.
Okay, so for example, if you have mass collection of data, and so in the case of the biometric data collection in Afghanistan, you have, the national ID card that was rolled out by the Afghan government. You have, the collection of biometrics for routine day-to-day governance operations, such as election security or screening employees for, work opportunities. And suddenly you have not just a database of potential terrorists or criminals, but you have a database that contains everyone. And so here with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, you have the concern that allies, individuals based on their ethnicity, based on their affiliations, their former work opportunities, could be targeted by the Taliban. And so I think it's really critical to think about the integration of these databases and the types of targeting that can be done by enemies and our foes moving forward.
Is there something that can be done at this point, now that the DoD has kind of left behind those devices? Is there something that can be done to secure that data?
I think that that's a really tough question of what can be done moving forward, because once the vulnerabilities are there and once the access is, achieved by the Taliban or others, then what you can do to take back the data or try to protect the data is really minimal. And so I think that the best defense that we have is planning ahead, understanding these consequences, foreseeing these types of dangers. And I would recommend that the Department of Defense and others that believe that this is the best way to fight terrorism consider whether or not we need to have such an expansive collection of the data and the methods of storage, whether or not the ways in which we're storing that data is the most secure method possible.
Let's talk a little bit more in the brief time that we've got left about lessons learned, your recommendations for the Department of Defense in this kind of biometric data.
So lessons moving forward, I would include asking questions. Is this biometric data collection truly necessary? Do we have any evidence that it's working? Is it efficacious? In the ways in which we're screening the databases, do we know that we are able to screen them with the highest level of accuracy? What are the methods of securing the data? I think that these are all the lessons that we take away from this.
All right. Well, Margaret, thanks so much for joining us and talking to us about this.
Thank you very much. Bye.